In this video, we're going to talk about levels. We're going to talk about what they are, how to create them, how to modify them, give you a quick example of how they relate to walls in the concept of your entire Revit project, as well as how to create plan views from these levels. So let's begin. So for right now, I have this sample project open, and these elements over here on the right are referred to as levels, and they signify the different levels of your building. Now these can relate to floor plans such as level 1, level 2, or also the foundation, as well as if you have like a split level or something like that where they exist. Now I've got a new project open right here. Go through the process of creating levels. Now, in this case, I created a new project using the architectural template. Okay, but depending on the template you use, you may have a various number of levels already existing in the project. I can always tell by how many levels I have by going over here in the project browser and expanding floor plans and then seeing how many levels I have here. Now by default, you should have one floor plan for every level, but it doesn't always have to be that way. So let's hop over to the north elevation. Because levels run perpendicular to elevations, that's the only views they're going to show up in. So you wouldn't ever see them in a floor plan or a ceiling plan. So right here, you can see that I have two levels. Levels 1 at elevation 0 and level 2 at elevation 10 foot. To modify them, I just simply select them, and then I have tons of controls which allow me to adjust how they look and how they interact with the drawing or sheet as a whole, as well as access to a temporary dimension which allows me to adjust their location. I can also use the properties panel to adjust these options as well. So let's begin first with creating one for a level 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the architectural tab, and then I'm going to go to the datum panel and then select level, or the shortcut key is LL. I'm going to click it, and then the first thing it's going to ask me is the start location of this level, and then it's going to ask me for a second point where it stops. You can see here in the options bar, I have an option to make a plan view. I'm going to deselect this right now, and then I'll kind of explain what it does after. Deselect it. I'm not going to select an offset. I could use that if I wanted to offset it relative to another level existing in the drawing. You notice my draw commands have reduced, so compared to the wall, I can't make rectangular levels or whatever the case may be. I can only make them linear, and I can either do them by free drawing, what I'm doing right now, or if I had a reference line in the drawing, I could pick a line and I could pick a reference line to put a level on top of it. For right now, I'm just going to do a free drawing. So I'm going to go over here. I'm not going to worry about the distance relative to the other one. I'm just going to click on the left-hand side, and you'll notice when I hover over to the left of this, a nice dashed line lets me know that, hey, that these are going to be aligned to each other. And I think that's the look of that, so I'm going to leave that. So I'm just going to click, drag my mouse over to the right, and then you notice I get the nice little dashed line letting me know that that's going to be lined up to the bubbles on the right. So I'm going to click there. And now it's selected, and if I click escape, I can get out of it, and now I have level 3 at elevation 24 foot 6. Cool thing about this is no matter how many levels I create, so if I click on create another one, and whether it's lined up or not, Revit is going to be intelligent enough to increment the name of it. Now let's say hypothetically that I wanted to change the name of a level. Okay, so this is going to show up on a sheet, so I could simply select the level, and then in the properties panel, you can see under identity data, there is the name. And I could change this from level 4 to roof. Now doing that, it's going to ask me, hey, do you want to update the name of the corresponding view? And at this point, we're going to start talking about floor plans, ceiling plans, etc. So for this case, I'm going to say no. And I'm going to explain what these do. So let's look over here in our project browser. You can see under floor plans, ceiling plans, I have a floor plan for level 1, 2, 4 site. But there's no floor plan for level 3. Well, that's because if you remember when we created the level 3 level, we didn't say make a plan view. If you ever want to create a plan view or ceiling view, for instance, of a level, all you do is go to the ribbon tab. And then from there, you can go to the Create panel, and from there, you can choose to create a plan view. If you click the drop down, you can see there's a lot of different options or types of plan view, including floor plan, reflected ceiling, structural plan, an area plan, and also a plan region. For right now, I'm just going to select floor plan. you notice I get this nice little pop-up box, and it tells me, hey, you can only have one floor plan or reflected ceiling plan, etc., per level. So it already knows that I have a floor plan for levels 1, 2, and 4, and it then prompts me and says, would you like to create one for level 3? I'm going to click OK, and now it shows up a floor plan for level 3, and then it also shows up in my project browser over here on the left-hand side. So that's how you create levels and then create the corresponding plan views. I like to leave that checkbox that creates one automatically, but you can decide based on the instance that you're using it. That's kind of up to you. So now I have my 4 different levels and I have the corresponding floor plans. Let's talk about some of these tools or controls that are allowed on this level. So when I select the levels, you'll notice a lot of these controls pop up. One is being this little 3D text right here. I got the lock icon here, as well as this checkbox over here. So we're going to go over a few of these. A lot of them are covered in detail in your book, but I want to cover the highlights. Click the 3D button. This actually adjusts whether I'm editing the 2D representation of this level or the actual 3D level, so going into the page and out of the page. So if I leave it at 3D and I drag it, two things happen. Number one, all the levels lines change because they're all locked to each other. That's what this locked signifies. If I deselect it, that level's going to move independent of the others. Okay, and it's going to change how they appear in 3D. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. If I click on the house in my quick access toolbar, these are my levels. And if I go back to my levels now, my north elevation, because I can't see levels in a plan view, select the roof, and I drag them and I make it, let's say, really, really short. So there's not that long of a line on my level. And I hop over to 3D, you can see it became short. Now, you might say to yourself, okay, well, that's fantastic, but does that mean that floor plan can only be as big as the levels? And that's true. A level goes infinitely in all directions. This is just where the dashed line starts and stops, and depending on how you're doing your and views, you may or may not want to adjust those in 3D. So if you're worried about, let's say, I'm going to hop back in my north view, let's say I'm doing a drawing and I want my level lines to be in this view, but I don't want it when I hop over to the 3D view or another view. So for instance, this is the north elevation. Let's say if I went to the south elevation, I didn't want them to be short in the south elevation. So how would I do that? Well, I'm going to hop over to the north elevation. I'm going to grab them and I'm going to drag them to make them long here. Okay. And you'll notice that changes them not only in 3D, but also in the south elevation. Now, if I wanted to change it just in the north elevation, I can select it, click this little text that says 3D and change it to 2D. You'll notice they're no longer in alignment and the control got a little bit smaller. Instead of a hollow circle, it's now a solid circle. And I can drag it and make it short. And you'll notice when I go to the 3D view that it still remains full size as well in the south elevation. And so that's how you can adjust how its appearance in a certain view rather than changing it across the board when it's in 3D. Notice when I grab these, I still have the option to toggle 3D on and off for this one, as also remove the lock so they don't move all together. So that's kind of up to you. Okay, there's also this little jagged line right here, which allows you to add an elbow to the elevation or level mark. So if you click it, you'll notice it adds a little one, and then you can use these points to move it up or down and adjust where it comes out at. And depending on your need, you may or may not need to do that inside your drawing. Okay, so let me undo that. And that is how to create a level as well as modify it. Now let's talk about some examples using an actual wall, because I think this really shows you the power of these levels. So I'm going to hop over to the level 1 floor plan by clicking level 1 right here. And you can see right now, I can't see any levels because I'm in a view that's perpendicular to them. And so I'm looking right at level 1. There's nothing in this drawing, but there are some levels, and so I just won't be able to see those in this floor plan. So now I'm going to draw a quick little wall. So I'm going to command, and you'll notice I have some options. In height, we talked about this before when we were walking through the how to create a wall aspect. You could change the height of the wall here or after the fact in the properties panel. Now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to say, hey, I want to draw a wall, okay? But let's look at some of these options. I have the options to make the wall come out of the plan view, so above the plan view, or below it, so by toggling the height and depth. Next to that, I have this unconnected button. We haven't really mentioned this before, but now we are. So we're going to click the drop down, and you'll notice that I have some options here. And if you notice, these correspond to the level names. So for instance, I'm at level 1, and let's say I want my wall to always go up to level 2. Well, I just select level 2 here. This grays out the unconnected height box, and it ensures that no matter where I draw the wall, it's going to be the distance between the level 1 and level 2 levels. Hop over 3D, and you can see right there. If I click on it, you can see the height, which is grayed out, is 10 feet. And if I go over to the north elevation, you can see that the delta between level 0 and level 2 is 10 feet. If I wanted to move level 2 up or down, I could simply select level, go into the elevation text box here, enter 15 feet, and you'll notice not only does the level change, but the wall does too. This is powerful if you want to keep all your walls to move up together and not have to select them each individually and go into the properties palettes and or do a giant crossing window and try to just select the walls to change their height. So that's just kind of showing how that the walls can be intelligently connected to the different levels.